LGBTQ advocates are putting pressure on Alberta's United Conservative Party to remove one of its members. It's after John Carpay compared the rainbow flag to swastikas. Carpay made the comments at a conference on the weekend. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
John Carpay is a Calgary-based lawyer, a member of the official opposition party in Alberta, the United Conservative Party, and he's also currently challenging Bill 24 by the Alberta government before the courts. That's the bill that would protect LGBTQ students from being outed to their parents by their schools. Carpay has been compared favorably in the past by UCP leader Jason Kenney to civil rights activist Rosa Parks. Here is what Carpay said at a conference on Saturday evening hosted by the far-right organization Rebel Media.
How do we defeat today's totalitarianism? Right? Because again, you got to think about the common characteristics. It doesn't matter whether it's a hammer and sickle for communism, or whether it's the swastika for Nazi Germany, or whether it's a rainbow flag. The underlying thing is a hostility towards individual freedoms.
Reached by CBC News for comment, Carpay first said his remarks were taken out of context. He later issued an apology in a statement. I'll read it to you now. I unintentionally drew a broad comparison between the rainbow flag and the flags which bear the symbols of communism and Nazism. I should not have done so, and I apologize. This is not the first time that the UCP has gotten into trouble for controversial things members of the party have said or done. Recently, Jason Kenney had to disavow a former campaign worker who had allegedly anti-Semitic and white supremacist views posted on social media. Prior to that, a couple of different nomination candidates posed for pictures with members of a hate group called the Soldiers of Odin. Kenney has said that he intends to kick out anyone with extremist views from his party and is proposing to build some sort of database to screen for those. The UCP has not said yet whether Carpay will be kicked out, although it has said his remarks from Saturday were unacceptable. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Edmonton.
Welcome back to Power and Politics. In the Power panel, Yolande, Rachel, Brad, and Karina. Over the weekend, John Carpay, a member of Alberta's United Conservative Party, was speaking at an event about beating totalitarianism. To make his point, he compared swastikas with the LGBTQ rainbow flag, saying, regardless of the symbol, the, quote, underlying thing is a hostility to individual freedoms. Carpay first defended the position, then sent an apology statement to the CBC saying he shouldn't, but UCP leader Jason he apologized in that statement. Then later, UCP leader Jason Kenney tweeted out this afternoon that the gay rights movement has worked through legal democratic means, often to overcome gross violations of basic freedoms by the state. I acknowledge that John Carpay apologized for his offensive remarks, but this tendency to trivialize the unique meaning of Nazi and Soviet terror must stop. Genocidal totalitarianism has no relationship to political disagreements in our liberal democracy. Mr. Kenney, hasn't said whether or not Mr. Carpay would remain a member of the party. Rachel, I'll start with you. Should he? I mean, as I was saying, after the tweets, many of the responses were, okay, now, so therefore what?
Yeah, so what now? I mean, look, I have a bit of sympathy for Jason Kenney in all of this. There's no question that those comments were absolutely abhorrent. I mean, I have no really words for how terrible they were. That said, political parties have thousands of members, and those members are going to have views that are offensive and idiotic, and maybe they'll have like a criminal conviction or two in there as well. Are political parties now going to be expected to go through their membership rolls and do background checks on everybody and monitor all of their actions and words going forward? I don't think that's realistic. I mean, the fact that this guy
is the lawyer, though, fighting the gay-straight alliances,
yeah,
right?
But he's not connected. He's not connected. Look, I don't want to defend this guy because he's just so awful. Like, I don't want to defend him. I'm trying to defend the fact that political parties have all of these members. This guy is not a candidate. He's not a senior official or any kind of official in the party. He's not connected to Jason Kenney or the party in any way, except that he took out a membership at some point in the party. So are we going to go through the roles of the Liberal Party in Ontario or the Conservative Party federally and weed out those people who have offensive views or who have some kind of background problem? I just don't think that's realistic. And I think the fact that this is being highlighted now, yes, the remarks were particularly awful. But I also think that there's a real effort to try and link Mr. Kenney personally and specifically to the offensive views of anyone who happens to hold a membership in his party.
Although I remember Danielle Smith suffered the same fate, right?
Like, well, but I think that's a little bit. I think that's a little bit unfair. I do agree that he's, the party has maybe, tended to attract extremists. But look at the NDP, for example. Are there people in that party who have denied 9/11 or who have said it's a hoax? In fact, they're probably not members; they're candidates.
Come on.
So,
Rachel.
if you're going to,
I'll get you in there, Brad. Let her finish.
Yes, we'll let Brad respond to that. But if we're going to go after political party members, let's make it consistent across parties. And so any party who has a member holding offensive views, it should be expected that that person will be purged. Let's do it consistently across the board.
Brad?
Well, Jason Kenney hasn't even taken any action against this person. If Jason Kenney thinks that this person's views that he just articulated 48 hours ago are not representative of the party, then he has the ability to ask him to leave. But, Rachel starts off her answer with saying, I have sympathy for Jason Kenney because there's so many, crackpots in the UCP. I have no sympathy
that's not exactly
for
what
Jason
she
Kenney.
said.
No, that's my interpretation of that's what I heard. Jason Kenney has been opposed to every single legislative and court ruling that have extended rights to gay and lesbian and transgendered Canadians who live in Alberta for his entire adult life. He opposed gay marriage. He opposed gay adoption. He opposed benefits for gays and lesbians. He is opposed to gay-straight alliances. He is he told his caucus to fighting how it was okay in Jason Kenney and in his party to have teachers phone the parents of individuals who joined gay-straight alliance.
Yeah.
That was what the whole bill was about.
That was their bill,
and
but that wasn't
fought against it.
alliance.
They fought against it tooth and nail. And so when you're the lead of that party, who do you attract? People who have very similar views, people who want to shut down gay and lesbians. Now, Jason Kenney, you read the tweet out at the beginning about saying, well, gay and lesbian Albertans have fought through the democratic processes to fight to extend their rights. Over every obstacle that Jason Kenney and conservatives like him have put in place. They've won these rights despite Jason Kenney, not because of him. And for him to shed these crocodile tears today saying, oh, well, they've worked within the system. He has put up roadblocks every step of the way to fight them. The next election's coming up in Alberta, and he has promised to rid his party of extremist views. And Rachel's just admitted that this man exemplifies.
Well, he did get rid of an employee I think it was last week. I mean,
but he's done, but
totally
only after it's caught, only after these individuals have been exposed publicly that they hold these views. And so far, 48 hours later, this man, Carpay, is still a member of that party. And that is what the voters are going to judge on whether or not Jason Kenney can even live up to the low expectations that he himself has set for his party.
Quickly, Rachel.
So let me jump in. I appreciate Brad's efforts on behalf of Rachel Notley and the NDP. But listen, if Jason Kenney is going to go around removing the membership of every single member of the UCP who has views that he doesn't agree with, same thing is true for the NDP, same thing is true for the Liberal Party. That's all he will ever do. That's all political parties will ever do from now going forward. Jason Kenney is not a homophobe. Jason Kenney, as immigration minister federally, set up a refugee program for gay refugees from Iran, from among other countries. I mean, he specifically set up that program to bring to Canada refugees who were being persecuted because of their sexuality.
But earlier,
before
that, he did espouse views that were not considered pro-gay. I mean, he did, and like Brad said, in that gay-straight alliance thing, he did support a bill that would have forced parents to, or forced the club to call.
Yeah, but to notify parents. Sure, you can argue about whether parents should be notified or not. He has never opposed gay-straight alliances.
No,
he has never taken. He's never taken any action that's been anti-gay or that has been overtly homophobic.
Hold on a second, Brad. Okay, wait. Everybody stop. Everybody stop. Let's not talk over each other. It's not helpful to us or the audience. Is there, Yolande? I mean, as long as there is no action taken, does Jason Kenney politically risk that this conversation continues? And I take Rachel's point that there are probably a lot of people with offensive views in a party that aren't holding positions of power or employees. But does he and the party risk this continuing to be the conversation?
Of course he does, as he should. I mean, we're not talking about a situation here, say, for example, that we took out readings of something that he did when he was in high school. I mean, he made a public speech that we were able to hear. It came back afterwards. He didn't even acknowledge it as some kind of slip of the tongue. He said it was taken out of context. Brad went over his the litigation in front of Bill 24 as well. In politics, it's about leadership and making choices. And Rachel is right that if that were to be in any other party, I would hope that those parties would disassociate from that person right away. So I don't see
his
what
statement
the whole
is pretty
hesitation
clear. The tweet
is about,
clear,
especially since he was with the former staffer, or I think she was a staffer. He didn't hesitate to cut the membership, or Jason Kenney did not hesitate to cut the membership for the staffer that had expressed anti-Semitic or racist views. So why is it any different here? Because we're talking about the LGBT community.
Final word to Karina.
Well, in an election year too for Alberta, when you're gearing up for an election, every party is going to be under more scrutiny, especially our newer party, a coalition party. So they're going to be under more scrutiny. But I do think that even with Carpay trying to explain and apologize, he said things that are still problematic, and so they'll be still problematic for Mr. Kenney in terms of, talking about it being an ideology. And in fact, in the court case that he's leading against the Bill 24, he talks about, he calls gay straight alliances ideological sexual clubs. So when you have that viewpoint and it's current, it's not something from high school, and there is no definitive action, even if it's a member and it's not a candidate, that becomes the story rather than all the things that Kenney would like to talk about. This is instead what they'll talk about for the party.
Eventually, though, if every time there's a view like that, then he has to, doesn't that become the story too?
Well, and Kenney did talk about after the last with the staffer, he did talk about actually trying to get he actually talked about a database that he'd like to try and use so he could, see who's an I don't know how that would possibly work, but he has talked about that.
But exactly, if it's a staffer or an official or a candidate or something, you can get rid of them because they're part of the official apparatus of the party. But he's made it very clear that the party doesn't sympathize with these views. In fact, it views them as totally opposite.
But politically, if a member who has that kind of profile espouses those views, how hard, politically, like
it's a problem for Maxime Bernier.
I agree.
It's like any leader who has that is a problem for that leader.
It's politically problematic, but it's also a slippery slope. Like he could spend all of his time going through the roles of party members trying to figure out who holds.
But people will ask the question: why are those people attracted to this party?
Well, but why are 9/11 deniers and anti-Semites attracted to the NDP? Right?
All leaders face.
Exactly.
Okay, we got to go. Stay with us because we'll be back for a final round after this. Stay tuned.